Welcome, everyone. We're about to dive deep into the ongoing war between us and microbes. Think of this as a masterclass designed to give you a really clear, clinically focused guide to the weapons in our arsenal and, just as importantly, the strategies we use to win.
Okay, so here's our battle plan. We're going to start by sizing up our arsenal, the antibiotics themselves. Then we'll get into the tactics, how they actually attack bacteria. Of course, the enemy fights back, so we'll cover their counterattack, resistance. After that, it's all about intelligence gathering in the lab. And finally, we'll tie it all together with the grand strategy of stewardship.
All right, first things first. We have to understand our weapons. You see, not all antibiotics are created equal, and how we classify them is the very first step in deciding how to use them out in the field.
And here is the absolute first, most critical distinction you need to know. Think of it like this. Bactericidal agents are the snipers. They go in for the kill, delivering a lethal blow. Bacteriostatic agents, on the other hand, are more like a blockade. They don't kill the bacteria outright, they just stop them from growing and multiplying. This gives the patient's own immune system a fighting chance to come in and clean up the mess. The choice between these two, it's a huge clinical decision.
So, how do these drugs actually pull this off? I mean, on a molecular level, what are the specific weak points that we're targeting to take these bugs down?
This right here, this is basically the enemy's blueprint. It shows us all their vulnerabilities. You can see there are four main targets: that rigid outer cell wall, the ribosomes, which act as tiny protein factories, the precious nucleic acids, their DNA right at the core, and the plasma membrane holding everything inside.
Okay, so strategy number one, and it's the most common for a reason. Go after the cell wall. Drugs like penicillin do this beautifully. They stop the bacteria from building that wall, and without it, the cell just falls apart. It's a brilliant move because our cells, human cells, don't have a cell wall. That means we can attack the bacteria with laser precision, causing almost no collateral damage to the patient.
Next up, we can shut down their internal factory. See, bacteria need to make proteins to survive, and they do that using ribosomes. By throwing a wrench in the works, targeting either the 30S or 50S parts of that machinery with drugs like macrolides, we can literally grind their entire operation to a halt. No proteins, no life.
Now for the other two strategies, which are way more direct. We can go straight for the genetic blueprint with drugs like fluoroquinolones, stopping them from copying their DNA. Or we can get really aggressive with something like a polymyxin and just punch holes in their outer membrane. I mean, it causes a catastrophic leak. It's a full-on structural assault.
So the real key here is to connect the drug class to its target. This table is your quick reference guide, your cheat sheet, and knowing this is absolutely fundamental. Let's say a bug is resistant to a beta-lactam that hits the cell wall. Well, you know right away you need to switch tactics and pick a drug from a totally different class, maybe one that messes with its DNA instead. But here's the thing, this isn't a one-sided fight. For every move we make, bacteria have evolved a countermove. This is the reality of antimicrobial resistance. Our enemy is smart, and it has developed some seriously sophisticated ways to survive. And this is how they do it. They've got four main defensive plays. They can release enzymes that just chew up our drugs. They can install these little pumps that literally spit the antibiotic right back out. They can change their outer armor to block our drugs from ever getting inside. Or, and this is a really clever one, they can just change the lock, modifying the target so our drug key no longer fits.
Now, bacteria get these defenses in two main ways. The first is through mutation, which is usually a slow burn, kind of a gradual process. But the second one, transferable resistance, well, that's the one that gives us nightmares. It can give a bacterium resistance to multiple drugs all at once, and it can spread through a population like wildfire.
So how does it spread so darn fast? Through these three methods. Bacteria can literally connect and share resistance genes directly. They can just absorb stray DNA from their surroundings, or they can get a special delivery of resistance genes from a virus. This ability to just pass around defensive blueprints is exactly why multi-drug resistant infections are so incredibly dangerous.
Okay, when you're fighting a clever enemy, you need good intel. And for us, that intelligence comes from the Microbiology lab. This is our command center, where we use something called antibiotic sensitivity testing, or AST, to figure out which of our weapons are actually going to work.
And this is our intelligence toolkit. The lab has a whole menu of options, from really simple diffusion tests to super fast automated systems. Each test gives us a different piece of the puzzle, but they all help us answer that one crucial question.
What's the right drug for this specific fight?
Now, the classic Kirby Bauer test is just beautiful in its simplicity. You lay down these little paper discs, each with a different antibiotic, on a plate covered in bacteria, and you can see the results with your own eyes. A big, clear kill zone around the disc, that means the drug works. No zone at all, like you see on the right, that antibiotic is completely useless against this bug.
The Etest takes it a step further. It doesn't just give us a yes or no, it gives us a number. This strip has a gradient of the drug, and where the bacteria stop growing, that tells us the minimum inhibitory concentration, the MIC. It's the lowest possible dose we need to stop the bug. And knowing that number is everything. It lets us find that Goldilocks dose, strong enough to work, but not so strong that we cause unnecessary side effects.
But we can get even more info. Dilution methods can tell us the minimum bactericidal concentration, not just what stops the bugs, but what actually kills them. And of course, in the real world, speed is critical. That's where automated systems like VITEK are a game changer. They can identify the bacteria and give us a whole panel of MICs, sometimes in just a matter of hours.
Okay, let's pull the camera back and look at the big picture. Because having the best weapons and the sharpest intel doesn't mean a thing if you don't have a sound strategy. And that strategy is called antibiotic stewardship.
At its heart, antibiotic stewardship is just a set of rules of engagement to make sure these precious drugs keep working for us in the future. It all boils down to using the right drug at the right dose for the right amount of time. It means we have to constantly be reviewing what we're doing, tracking resistance, and educating ourselves so we don't use these life-saving tools irresponsibly.
And you know, this whole strategic mindset isn't just for bacteria. The core principle applies to everything. Whether we're fighting viruses, fungi, or parasites, the game is the same. Find something that's unique to them, a vulnerability they have that we don't, and exploit it. The enemy might change, but the fundamental strategy holds true.
And this is really the ultimate takeaway. Every single time a clinician writes a prescription, it's a balancing act. You have to do what's best for the patient in front of you right now. But you also have a responsibility to protect these incredible medicines for everyone who will need them tomorrow. This definition just nails it. It's about getting the best possible outcome for our patient while making the smallest possible dent in the future effectiveness of our drugs. It's those two things, held in perfect balance. That's the goal.
So we'll leave you with this question to think about. This arms race between us and the microbial world isn't stopping. It's constantly evolving. The next chapter will definitely involve new drugs and new technology, but honestly, it's going to depend even more on us, on how wisely we manage the incredible tools we already have in our hands.